I remember the night it all started. It was raining, the kind of slow, heavy rain that makes every streetlight look like it's crying too. I was sitting at a small corner table in the hotel lounge, waiting for the barista to bring my coffee, scrolling through my emails, pretending I wasn't as lonely as I felt. And then he walked in. Daniel. Tall, calm, confident in that effortless way that makes you feel seen without even looking directly at you. He asked if the seat beside me was taken. I shook my head, and that simple gesture began a story that would change everything I thought I knew about love and truth. He smiled, ordered the same drink I had, and joked about how great minds think alike. We talked. God, we talked. About music, travel, his job in marketing, my never-ending deadlines. He said he'd been married once, but it was over for a long time. He said it the way someone talks about an old injury that no longer hurts. I believed him. I shouldn't have. When I went back to my room that night, I replayed our conversation over and over. There was something so easy about him, like we'd met before in another life. He texted me before I even took off my shoes. I can't stop thinking about your smile. I smiled at the screen, foolishly thinking it meant something pure. For the next 3 days of that conference, we were inseparable. Morning coffee, shared cab rides, stolen glances during meetings. Everyone thought we were co-workers. We didn't correct them. On the last night, it rained again. We stood under the canopy outside the hotel, and he kissed me, slow, certain, like it was meant to happen. He said, "I haven't felt like this in years." I wanted to believe it was real. After the conference ended, we kept talking. Texts turned into long calls. Calls turned into FaceTimes that lasted until dawn. He told me he lived in Boston, that he was in the middle of moving out. He said, "It's complicated, but it's almost done." I told myself that was enough, that love doesn't come with perfect timing. But timing is everything. 3 weeks later, he came to see me. He said he had meetings in town, but we both knew he came for me. He stayed at a hotel nearby. When I saw him walk toward me in the lobby, my heart forgot every reason to be cautious. Dinner turned into wine turned into laughter, and laughter turned into the kind of closeness that makes you forget to guard your heart. He kissed me goodnight, whispered, "You make me feel alive again." And just like that, I was gone, lost to a promise that was never real. Days became weeks. Every morning started with his message, "Good morning, beautiful." Every night ended with, "I wish you were here." He sent photos, sunsets from his hotel windows, playlists with songs that felt like us. He said, "I'm almost free. Just a little longer." I waited, because hope is addictive when it's dressed like love. But cracks started to show. Sometimes he'd go silent for days, then come back with a sweet apology. He said, "Work's been insane." Other times he'd call late, whispering like someone might hear him. He said, "I'm just being careful until it's done." I asked, "Until what's done?" He changed the subject. One night, I heard a woman's voice in the background. He said it was the TV. My gut told me otherwise, but love makes you rationalize the impossible. So I ignored it. A month later, everything changed. I called him one evening, but he didn't answer. A few minutes later, I got a voicemail meant for someone else. A woman's voice. "Hey, it's me. Don't forget the dinner with the kids tomorrow. Love you." My stomach dropped. Kids? Dinner? Love you? He had told me he had no children. He told me his marriage was over, and in that one message, the truth cracked open like thunder. When I confronted him, he panicked. He said, "It's not what you think. We're just sorting things out. We live separate lives." I wanted to hang up, but part of me needed to hear more. Needed him to tell me something that made sense. He said, "She knows it's over. We just haven't told the kids yet." Every sentence was a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, and I kept pressing them on, pretending it could stop the bleeding. The next morning, a bouquet arrived at my office. White lilies, my favorite. The card read, "Don't give up on us. You're the only real thing I've had in years." I stared at those flowers for a long time. People walked by, smiling, thinking I was lucky. If only they knew. For a few days after the flowers arrived, I tried to believe him again. That's the worst part of loving a liar. You start lying to yourself. I told myself maybe marriages really could be emotionally over before they were legally done. I told myself maybe I'd met him at the wrong time, but that fate would fix it. Every excuse was a thread, and I wrapped them around my heart until I couldn't breathe. He called that weekend. His voice was soft, almost boyish. "Things are messy right now," he said. "I just need you to trust me a little longer." I asked, "Does she know about me?" Silence. Then, "Not yet." My chest tightened. "Then what are we, Daniel?" He sighed. "We're what's real." After that call, I started living in two worlds. The one where I was his future, and the one where I was his secret. Every time my phone lit up with his name, I felt both joy and shame. It's strange how love can feel holy and dirty at the same time. Weeks passed. We met whenever he said he was traveling for work. Always hotels, never homes. Always whispers, never daylight. I kept asking, "When will this be over?" He kept saying, "Soon." But soon became a word with no date. Then came the night I finally saw the truth. Not through words, but through silence. It was late, past midnight. I sent him a photo. Nothing revealing, just me smiling with a caption, "Miss you." No reply. Morning came. Nothing. Afternoon. Still nothing. By evening, I felt sick. I searched his name on social media, something I had promised myself I'd never do, and there it was. A tagged photo. Daniel smiling at a charity dinner. Next to him, a woman with her hand on his chest. His wife. Her name was Emily. The caption read, "So proud of my husband and his amazing speech tonight. 15 years and counting." I dropped my phone. 15 years. While I'd been waiting for him to move out, he'd been posing for family photos. I couldn't breathe. I called him once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Finally, he texted, "Can't talk. At dinner with clients." Clients. Right. I typed and erased 100 messages before sending just one. I saw the picture. "Don't ever call me again." He called immediately. I almost didn't pick up, but I needed to hear it. The excuse, the spin, the lie dressed as truth. He said, "It's not what it looks like." I laughed bitterly. "You're smiling with your wife, Daniel." "She's not really my wife anymore." "Then why are you celebrating anniversaries?" "She posted that. I didn't." I closed my eyes. "You're unbelievable," he whispered. "Please. I love you." That sentence used to melt me. Now it made me sick. I hung up. He called again. I let it ring. The next day, he sent a long email. Paragraphs of apologies, explanations, promises. I didn't reply, but heartbreak isn't a clean break. It's a slow tearing. You tell yourself you're done, and then one memory pulls you back. A song, a place, a text you forgot to delete. 2 weeks later, he showed up outside my office. I froze when I saw him through the glass doors, standing there in the rain, holding a paper bag with coffee and my favorite pastry. He looked tired, desperate. He said, "Please, can we just talk?" Against my better judgment, I let him. We sat in his car. The air smelled like rain and guilt. He said, "She found out. That's why things are messy. But I told her it's over. I'm moving out next month." I stared out the window. "Daniel, I can't do this anymore." He reached for my hand. "You're the only one who knows me. Please don't give up now." And just like that, I gave him one more chance. Because hope is cruel like that. It shows up right after the truth, wearing the same face as love. For a little while, it felt normal again. Calls, texts, late-night talks about our future. He even started saying things like, "Once I'm settled, you'll finally meet my kids." Kids. The same kids I hadn't known existed a month earlier. It felt strange, but I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the discomfort. Then one night, around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered half asleep. "Hi," a woman's voice said. "Is this Maya?" "Yes." "Who's this?" Pause. "This is Emily, Daniel's wife." Every word hit like a hammer. My mouth went dry. She said, "I found your messages. I just want to know. Did he tell you we were separated?" I couldn't speak. She continued, voice calm but shaking. "You're not the first. I hoped you'd be the last." My eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I believe you," she said softly. "He tells the same story to everyone." I could hear a baby crying in the background. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be," she replied. "I just wanted you to know the truth." The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, feeling like I'd been erased. The next morning, he texted me like nothing had happened. "Good morning, beautiful." I typed back, "Your wife called." His reply came fast. "Wait, what did she say?" I wrote, "Enough." Then I blocked him. For days, he tried to reach me, new numbers, new accounts, even handwritten letters to my office. Each one said the same thing. "I'm sorry. She doesn't love me like you do." But his words had lost their magic. Every "I love you" now sounded like "I used you." One night I burned his letters. I sat on my balcony with a small metal tray, watching the paper curl and blacken. The smoke smelled like old perfume and broken promises. When the last ember died, I felt lighter. Not healed, just empty enough to start over. But healing isn't linear. Some mornings, I'd wake up missing him so much it hurt. Other days, I'd feel proud of myself for walking away. Grief and relief danced together, taking turns inside my chest. Weeks turned into months. I changed my number, deleted our photos, repainted my apartment. Slowly, my life became mine again. Then one afternoon, as I was leaving work, I saw him across the street. He looked smaller somehow, older. He smiled weakly and crossed over. "Hi," he said. My pulse quickened, but I stood my ground. He said, "You look good." "Thanks," I answered. "How are you?" "I'm learning," I said. He nodded, eyes full of regret. "I messed up everything." "Yes," I said quietly. He took a deep breath. She stayed. but it's not the same. I looked at him, really looked, and realized he wasn't the man I'd loved. He was just the man who taught me what lies can sound like when they're whispered gently. He asked, "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No, but I don't know you anymore." He looked down, then back at me. "I still think about you." I smiled sadly. "That's your punishment." Then I turned and walked away. This time, I didn't look back. After I walked away from Daniel that day, something inside me went completely still. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm tears everything apart, and you stand there surrounded by broken pieces, realizing the wind has finally stopped. For weeks, I moved through my life like a ghost. I went to work. I smiled when people spoke. I even laughed sometimes, but it wasn't real. At night, when the city outside my window softened into silence, I'd lie there replaying everything, every word, every look, every promise that had felt so true. I kept asking myself why I hadn't seen it. How could I have been so blind? The truth is, lies don't always look like lies. Sometimes they look like love. They sound like hope. They feel like safety. And when you've been lonely long enough, you'll believe almost anything that feels like home. I started writing in a notebook, little things at first, what I felt, what I feared, what I missed. Then I started writing to him as if he could hear me. Letters I never sent. I wrote, "You taught me that love can be a weapon when it's used without truth." I wrote, "You made me afraid to trust kindness again." And then one night, I wrote something different. "You don't get to decide how my story ends." That was the first time I felt strong again. I began running in the mornings. At first, I could barely make it a block without gasping for air, but every step felt like I was reclaiming something he'd taken. By the third week, the sunrise didn't feel like a reminder of pain anymore. It felt like a beginning. My friends noticed the change. They'd invite me out, and I'd actually say yes. We'd sit in tiny cafes and talk about everything but him. It was freeing, like learning how to breathe without asking permission. One night, my friend Nadia said, "You know what's crazy? You still talk about him gently." I shrugged. "I guess hate still keeps you tied to someone. I'm tired of being tied." She smiled and said, "That means you're healing." Healing? It's such a small word for such a massive task. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes in whispers. The first night you sleep through without crying, the first time you hear his name and your stomach doesn't twist, the first day you realize you didn't think of him at all. Around month 3, I got a message request on social media, a name I didn't recognize. I hesitated before opening it. It was Emily, his wife. My chest tightened. Her message was simple. "I wanted to thank you for being honest that night. I left him 2 months later. It's been hard, but I'm learning to stand on my own. I hope you're doing okay too." I stared at that message for a long time. 2 months later. So she left him. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Another part felt sad, not for him, not for her, but for all the wreckage he'd left behind. 2 women who believed the same man, 2 hearts broken by the same lie. I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. I wish you peace, truly." And I meant it. That night, I realized forgiveness isn't about excusing someone. It's about freeing yourself from their shadow. I wasn't forgiving him for him. I was forgiving him for me. Months went by. Work got busier. I even started a new hobby, photography. Funny how life imitates healing. When you focus a camera, you have to adjust the light, blur the background, and find clarity. That's what I was learning to do with my life, adjusting the light, blurring what didn't matter, focusing on what did. Sometimes, though, the memories would still sneak up on me. I'd be walking home in the rain, see a man in a suit on his phone, and for a split second my heart would stop. Then I'd remember, and I'd breathe. I started noticing couples again, on park benches, laughing in restaurants, holding hands across tables. For a while I couldn't look. Then slowly I stopped comparing. Their happiness no longer felt like an accusation. It just was. And that, too, was healing. One evening, while sorting old files on my laptop, I found a folder named Us. Photos of Daniel and me. Hotel lobbies, city lights, blurry selfies. I hovered over the delete button. My heart whispered, keep one. But my soul said, no. I pressed delete. It didn't hurt. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. Weeks later, life handed me a small test. I got an email from an unknown address. Subject line, I'm sorry. The sender, Daniel. For a moment, time froze. Against my better judgment, I opened it. He wrote, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally told the truth to everyone. Emily left. I'm alone now. I think about you every day. I hope you're happy. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I stared at those words, waiting for the ache. But it didn't come. Just a quiet compassion. He was living in the prison he built, and I was finally free. I didn't reply. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. That night I walked outside, barefoot on my balcony, letting the cold air touch my skin. The city lights shimmered below like tiny apologies. I whispered to myself, you made it through. It felt true. A year after it all began, I took a trip to the coast. Just me, my camera, and a notebook. The ocean was gray that morning, restless and alive. I stood there thinking how the sea never stops moving, no matter what storms pass through it. Maybe I was learning to be like that, never still for too long, never broken for good. I wrote in my journal, he said his marriage was over. He lied. But that lie taught me the difference between being chosen and being hidden. It taught me that love without truth is just illusion, and I'd rather be alone in the rain than standing in the warm light of someone else's home, uninvited. As I finished writing, a group of kids ran past me, laughing, their shoes splashing through shallow puddles. For the first time in months, I laughed too. It wasn't forced. It came from somewhere honest. That's when I realized healing doesn't mean you forget. It means you remember differently, without needing the pain to prove it happened. I packed up my notebook, took one last photo of the horizon, and whispered goodbye to the version of myself that once believed every promise. She deserved better. And now, she was getting it. After that trip to the coast, I stopped counting time by months since Daniel. I started counting by moments that felt like life again. The first morning I woke up and didn't check my phone. The first evening I cooked dinner for myself and actually enjoyed the silence. The first time I caught my reflection and didn't see heartbreak staring back. Grief had become my roommate for a while. Quiet, persistent, always there. But slowly, I realized it was packing its bags. I didn't chase it. I just let it go. Work began to feel different too. I stopped dragging my feet into the office. I stopped waiting for messages that never came. I focused, really focused, and people noticed. My manager said, "You seem lighter." I smiled. Maybe I finally learned how to breathe. One afternoon after a long meeting, a colleague named Aaron asked if I wanted to grab coffee. It was innocent, casual. The old me would have said no, too scared to let anyone in, but I said yes. And it wasn't a date. Not really. It was just two people sharing caffeine and stories about life. Still, I caught myself watching the way he listened. Really listened. No performance, no charm, just presence. That's what truth sounds like. Quiet, consistent presence. For weeks after that, I caught myself smiling for no reason. Not because of him, but because I felt me again, whole, human, unhidden. It's strange how the same streets that once carried your heartbreak can later carry your healing. A year and a half after everything ended, I walked those same blocks again, not searching this time, just living. The rain still fell, the light still shimmered, but it all felt different. The world hadn't changed. I had. That night I stopped by a little bookstore I'd never noticed before. The owner, an older woman with kind eyes, said, "You look like someone who loves stories." I smiled. "I've lived a few." She laughed softly. "Haven't we all?" I wandered through the aisles, the smell of paper and dust wrapping around me like comfort. My hand brushed a book titled The Art of Letting Go. I opened it to a random page, and the line I saw made me still. Sometimes closure isn't about answers. It's about understanding that you don't need them anymore. I closed the book and whispered, "Exactly." I bought it. Not because I needed the advice, but because it felt like a souvenir from a place I'd finally arrived. That night, back home, I sat by my window with the city below, sipping tea instead of wine. I used to drown my thoughts in noise. Now I could sit quietly and actually like my own company. It was then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. For a second, my heart did that old familiar thing, the tiny jump of fear mixed with curiosity. I opened it. A simple text. "Hey, it's Daniel." I stared at the screen. No surge of adrenaline, no anger, just calm. I waited a full minute before replying. "What do you want, Daniel?" He wrote, "I heard your podcast. I didn't expect to. I just wanted to say, you were right about everything. I've been trying to be better. I'm sorry." I read the words slowly, not because they mattered, but because they didn't anymore. I typed back, "I hope you find peace." Then I blocked the number, not out of spite, but out of finality, because sometimes the last word isn't a word at all. It's the decision to stop needing one. I exhaled, and it felt like the final page of a long, painful chapter folding shut. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, a rare golden kind that makes everything look gentle. I brewed my coffee, fed my cat, and stood barefoot on the balcony. Below, the city moved like always, horns, footsteps, laughter, life. And for the first time in so long, I felt like I was part of it again. I thought about how love used to mean losing myself in someone else. Now it meant coming home to myself. And maybe that's the real ending. Not finding the person you were meant to be with, but becoming the person you were meant to be. Months later, the podcast producers called again. They were compiling a follow-up episode. Stories of how life had changed after heartbreak. They asked if I'd share a closing message. I hesitated, then said yes. Sitting in that studio again, I didn't feel nervous this time, just grateful. The host smiled and said, "Our listeners loved your first story. Many said it gave them courage. What do you want to tell them now?" I looked at the microphone, this tiny black circle that somehow connected me to thousands of unseen hearts. And I said, "If you're listening and someone has lied to you, betrayed you, or made you question your worth, please know this. Their lie doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. You believed because you love deeply, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. But one day you'll wake up and realize you don't need their apology anymore. You don't need closure from them, because the closure is you, standing here, breathing, surviving, living." The room was silent when I finished. The host whispered, "That was beautiful." And maybe for the first time I believed it. After recording, I walked outside. It was late afternoon, the sky painted in soft oranges and pinks, the kind of beauty you miss when you're busy chasing things that hurt you. I found a bench, sat down, and just watched the world go by. Couples passed, children laughed, a street musician played a love song. None of it hurt anymore. It all just was. I pulled out my notebook, the same one that once held my heartbreak, and wrote a new page. At the top I wrote, "New beginnings." Then beneath it, "I used to think heartbreak was an ending, but now I know it's a translation. It takes you from the language of pain to the language of truth, and truth, no matter how hard, will always set you free." As I closed the notebook, a man nearby dropped his coffee and muttered a soft curse. I laughed, offered him a napkin. He smiled, a little embarrassed. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Openness. Not romance, just possibility. And I realized that's how healing sneaks in, quietly, when you're not looking for it. The days that followed were ordinary in the most extraordinary way. I cooked, I read, I slept peacefully, and each ordinary moment felt like a victory. One night, as I lay in bed, I whispered a small prayer. Not for him, not for love, but for myself. I said, "Please don't let me forget how far I've come." And I swear, in that stillness, I could almost hear the universe whisper back, "You won't." Now, when people ask about my story, when they say, "What happened with that guy who lied?" I smile and answer, "He became a lesson." Because that's all heartbreak ever is, a teacher wearing the mask of pain. And if you listen closely, it teaches you the most important truth of all. That love, real love, doesn't need to be begged for. It doesn't hide you, silence you, or make you smaller. It meets you in the light, hand open, eyes honest, heart steady. Anything less isn't love. It's just a story waiting for an ending. And mine? Mine ended the moment I decided I deserved more than almost love. So, if you're listening right now, and you're in that dark place where I once stood, holding your phone, waiting for a message that will never come, I want you to know you will survive this. You will eat again, laugh again, love again. One day, you'll look back at the version of yourself that thought you'd never make it, and you'll whisper, "You did." Because you will. You absolutely will. That's my story. He said his marriage was over. He lied. But the truth? I'm finally free. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.